and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be talking about the position property in CSS. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you find this video useful, share it with someone else. Also, if you want to support my channel, I am going to leave my PayPal link in the description below. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so to get started with the position property here in CSS, I need you guys to open the same website we've been working so far, which is w3schools.com. I want you to go to the CSS section, and then you're going to scroll all the way down to where it says CSS position. As well, make sure to have open the same website we've been building so far and the code for that website, because we are going to be using that today. So, a couple of things that I want to do with my code, because today we're going to take a look at 5 values with this property. So I am going to add 5 divisions into my code. Right now we have 2 divisions. So I am going to add simply, let's just go ahead and add 3 more. Okay, so let's do that. So 1, whoops, 2, 3 more. Okay, and of course, we are going to make sure that we create a space between this one. And we're going to change the classes for each one of them. This is going to be example number 3, example number 4, and then we're going to create this for example number 5. Now I'm going to hit save, and we're going to go back to our code and hit refresh. Okay, perfect. So there we have the other 3 divs we just added. Another thing we want to do here is give them some style, okay? And I am going to apply a width. I'm not going to apply a max width to them like we did in the previous example in our last chapter. What I want to do is apply just a regular width, some border, some margin, and that's it. And in fact, you know what? Let's remove the margin, just so you guys can see how everything looks like when we use the position property. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I will paste this one time. And let's do this just one more time. We're going to obviously be changing the colors as well. So, okay, so this is the style for example number 1, number 2. So let's apply this for example number 3, example number 4, and then the example number 5. Now here we have the first one will be red, the second one will be blue, the next one, let's just make it black. Okay, and then let's make this one green, and let's make the last one yellow. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to hit, okay, let me just cancel this, save, and going back to our code, we're gonna hit refresh, and boom, there we go. So now we have our 5 divisions that we are going to be using to work with the position property here. So let's go back to W3 Schools, and the first thing that I want you to do is, as always, start reading a little bit, okay? So the position property is part of setting up a good layout for our website. So the position property is going to specify the type of positioning method used for the element. And here are the 5 values that you will see when using the position property. You can use the value static, you can use the value relative, you can use the value fixed, absolute, and sticky. Those are the 5 values that we are going to take a look at today. Okay, now the elements are then positioned using the top, bottom, left, and right properties. However, these properties will not work unless the position property is set first. So pay close attention to that. Now they also work differently depending on the position value. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of examples, okay? So let's get started with the first one, the value static. So HTML elements are positioned static by default, as you may know, and you can take a look and see here. If we take a look at this, I'm going to maximize everything. If I scroll down, they just remain static, right? They don't change. So that's what they mean when they say static. Now, an element with the position static is not positioned in any special way. It is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page, the examples that we saw previously. But now let's take a look at the example here at W3 School. So let's hit here where it says try it yourself. So here we have a div. As you can see, they applied the position static and then they added some border to this. Okay, so going back to our code, if you take a look here, we have a width and we have a border, right, for this property. So the position here is static. So we're going to do the same thing for the division number 1. We're going to apply position, and then we're going to say that the position for the example number 1 will be static. And I am going to remove, by the way, the width for this one. Okay, so let's close this and let's make sure to hit save. Now going back to our code, the first paragraph is where we are applying the position static right now. So let's hit refresh. And as you can see, the only thing that changed now because we removed the width is that the red square around it, now it extended all the way through the entire window. So the element will remain static. If I go ahead and I maximize this, you see, it's static, and the border itself rearranges without having to set up a maximum width. Now, if I go ahead and I minimize this again, you see, all the rest, they already have a width, so they will remain with that width, but the position static will adjust the entire screen, as you can see. Okay, so the position static, as you can see as well, if we go ahead and we scroll down, it'll go away, like it's not going to stick nor anything if we use the scroll option. So those are just a couple of things that you need to take a look at when using this position. It's very simple. It's just static. It'll stay in that same place and it will adjust depending on what's going to be the computer screen, right? Or your device screen, in other words. Okay. So that's the position static. Now let's close this out and let's take a look at the second value, which is position relative. So an element with the position relative is positioned relative to its normal position. So setting the top, right, bottom, and left properties of a relative position element will cause it to be adjusted away from its normal position. Now other content will not be adjusted to fit into any gap left by the element. So if you want to take a look and see how this works, let's go ahead and hit here where it says try it yourself. Here we have the position and we have some space here of 30 pixels between the screen here and the start of the division, right? So we are going to apply exactly the same values that we see here on this example so that you can see how this is going to work with our code. So going back here, let's remove the width for the example number 2, and we're going to apply here position relative. Okay, and we are going to, let's give it the same left, a size of 30 pixels. Okay, let's do 30 pixels as well here, and let's save this information. Now I am going to go back to our code, and let's make sure to hit refresh, and boom. Okay, so one thing that you need to notice, if the position here is relative, you see how this has moved? Now, if it's relative, this does not adjust to the screen, like it doesn't resize. You see what it does? If I go ahead and I happen to move my screen, the entire division will continue. So you need to pay close attention to that because the position relative is not going to readjust. Another thing that you can take a look at is if we go ahead and resize the window, let's say like this, and I want to, I don't know, let's maximize this and let's scroll down and up. Let's just make it bigger. The position static, it stays there, you see? And it resizes the entire square. Now the position relative here, it also stays in the same place, right? But the only thing is that the edges of the square will not change, right? It's going to go all the way here to where the content of the division goes. So those are the two differences between a static and relative, okay? So I'm going to zoom this out, and let's take a look at the third value here. Let's close this out. And the third value that we're going to take a look at is fixed. Okay, so an element with the position fixed is position relative to the viewport. Pay close attention to that, which means that it always stays in the same place, even if the page is scrolled. Either the top, right, bottom, and left properties are used to position the element. So here we have another example for the position fixed. So going back here to example number 3, we're going to use that so you can see the difference in our code. I'm going to hit here where it says try it yourself. Now, to this position, here is the division, by the way. You see this is fixed. We have they applied the position fixed. Now, to the bottom, they said 0. 0 pixels to the bottom. That's why it's just barely at the very bottom. Doesn't have any type of it doesn't have any type of pixels there. To the right also, it's very to the right because is the default is 0 as well there. Then in this one, they added a width of 300 pixels and the border so that you can see that. So let's take a look at that into our code. We're going to use example number 3 for this one. Let's apply the position fixed, okay? And the next thing we want to do here, now our size here, our width size is 300 pixels, as you can see. So I have it at 300 pixels, and this one it's 800 pixels. Just so you can see the example similar, I'm going to change this to 300 pixels as well. And we are going to add a bottom and a right, okay? So let's add bottom 0, and let's add the right as well to 0 so that it's positioned in the same way as the example that you see here. Okay, so now I'm going to hit save, and we're going to go back to our web page, and this is the third paragraph that you're going to see changed now. So I'm going to hit refresh, and boom, you see now the square, it's 300 pixels. The division is 300 pixels width, and now it is positioned at the bottom of the page. Now, if I go ahead and I resize my window, you see how it stays in the same exact location? Stays there, and you have to either if you scroll to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter, it'll stay there. That's why it's fixed. If you scroll up and down, it'll also stay there. Okay, now I'm going to maximize this again. Let's give it a little bit of zoom. You see? So it's still there. The information, it's still there. In fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and go back to our code, and I want to add a background color to this. A background color of, let's use this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to hit save, and let's hit refresh. And there you go. That's just so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay, now the other thing I want to do, just so that you can see with the position fixed, I'm going to make this smaller. Actually, let's make it 150 pixels. If I hit save and now hit refresh, okay, this has changed to 150 pixels of width. Also, let's give it a height, just so it has a height of 150 pixels as well. So let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's do a height of 100 pixels so we can see the difference. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now I'm going to zoom out, and there you go. So with position fixed, we can have the same division in the same position that we want without it changing with, let's say, a scroll or something in our website. So that's how it works. Let's go on to our fourth value now. The fourth value we're going to take a look at is at position absolute. Now, here, an element with the position absolute is position relative to the nearest position ancestor. So instead of position relative to the viewport, right, like this one that we just saw. And if an absolute position element has no position ancestors, then it uses the document body. and it moves along with page scrolling, just so you know. Now, a position element is one whose position is anything except static, okay? Make sure to take notes of that. We're going to take a look at this other example, but for this, I believe we're going to have to create another division. And okay, let's go back. Let's go to the example here and let's hit try it yourself, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So here we have a division, and then inside of that division, we have another one. So let's do that with the division number 4. So right now on division number 4, here we have the division, and you know what? Let's just do this and let's search for, or you know what? Let's just simply copy everything. Okay. I'm copying that, and now I'm going to indent this to make this a child for this division. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that I remove the closing tag here. Okay, the closing tag is going to be all the way here. Whoops, give me 1 second, people. Okay, so here, what I am going to do is remove the closing tag. Let's just select this one. Okay, and we are going to paste the closing tag here. There we go. So now I'm going to hit save. Going back here, I'm going to hit refresh. And boom, you see now we have one div inside of the other. Now I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, like, I can make this a little bit clear for you. Okay, so this is the other division that we created. And just so you can go ahead and actually see the 2 closing tags here. Okay, so here's the paragraph, right? This is the first division. And then inside, we have this other division that is right here. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions about this, I mean, we saw this already on the HTML course, but if you have questions about this, just go ahead and leave them in the comment section below and I will reply as soon as I can, okay? So I just applied that to the division, and then I gave this a division example number 4. Let's make this example number 4.2, okay? And I'm going to hit save. And what we want to do is to our example number 4, I'm going to copy this, paste it, and let's call this let's just do 42 instead of 4.2. Okay, just let's do 42. It's number 4, the second one. Okay, so now I'm going to hit save. Let's hit refresh here. Okay, perfect. Everything is the same, but I'm going to change the second color here, and let's make this pink, just so you can see this. And the pixels we're going to put here is going to be 400. Let's just do actually 300 pixels of width. Let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh, and there we go. Just so you can see the difference between one and the other. Okay, so going back to our example here. So we have a position relative for our first element here. And then we have a second one with the position absolute, which is the one that we are taking a look at right now. So this one has a position relative. The width is 400 pixels, height 200 pixels. Let's add a height to this one as well. And let's use the same exact value. So 400 pixels here and 200 pixels to the height. And let's make sure to add this as a position relative. Position relative. Okay, let's hit save. And now we're going to add, let's make sure that this was saved correctly. Okay, let's hit refresh. Perfect. Okay, so that's saved. Now I am going to play around with this second square right here. Now the second square has a position of absolute. Let's go ahead and add that up here. Position. Okay, so the position is going to be absolute. There we go. And we are going to add top 80 pixels. So top 80 pixels, and then we are going to also add the same values here. So to the right, 0, add 0 to the right. Then we have to add a width and a height. Okay, so we already have a width. Let's add a height here. So the height is going to be, yes, so 100 pixels. And then the width is going to be 200 pixels here. Let's do that there. And then we're just going to leave the border and all the style there the same. Okay, so let's hit save, and now let's hit refresh here. Whoops, not here, I'm sorry, here. Okay, perfect. So this has changed now, as you can see. And of course, the content is going out of the paragraph. We can go ahead and remove some content just so you can go ahead and take a look at the entire paragraph there. Let's see if that helps. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so going back to our example here, as you can see, if you use the position absolute here, this exact division is going to stay there. Now let's see what happens when I go ahead and I change this around. Okay, so as you can see here, well, this one is going to stay there because we just, we just use the position fixed for that one. And of course, we cannot move it, remember? So the third paragraph will remain there. But to the position absolute, the division here, we still see it in the same place. Now, if I go ahead and I minimize everything, see, it's still in the same place inside of the parent division, because this one is the child. So on the examples that we take a look here at W3 schools, the element with the position absolute is position relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. So as you can see here, if we set up this as absolute, then the parent element is the one that they are going to take as a measurement to apply this, to apply the top, to apply the right, to apply the width, the height, the border. So it's not taking the entire screen, like it's not taking the body like the other three examples did, right? They adjust themselves to the entire window size. This one instead is taking the parent element, which is the other division, and that is being taken to apply the top, left, right, the width, and all that is inside. So if you definitely want to adjust your website and add certain things into certain divisions inside, and then you want to take the parent folder as a guide, then definitely use the position absolute here. You can go ahead and play around with this and see what else it can do. If we scroll to the right, you see it doesn't adjust. It'll remain the same. Now, if we maximize this and I scroll down or scroll up, it doesn't stay in the same place like the position fixed. It'll move, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have questions about position absolute, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. Now let's take a look at our last value, which is position with sticky value. Okay, so an element with position sticky is position based on the user scroll position. Okay, so this one is super cool. So a sticky element toggles between relative and fixed. Like it's right in the middle of those other two values. Depending on the scroll position, it is position relative until a given offset position is met in the viewport. Then it sticks in its place. So let me just go ahead and show you the example. If we click here and try it yourself, this is the sticky property. So we're going to use this with our last division here, which is example number 5. And let's go ahead and apply the position sticky. Okay, so here let's say position, and then let's use sticky. Okay, and by the way, they are using WebKit sticky. So if you go ahead and you add WebKit sticky, the box position is calculated according to the normal flow in the box offset relative. So you can go ahead and actually read a little bit there. I'm going to use the same as the example just so it doesn't vary that much and you can actually see the same results. Okay, so the position is WebKit sticky, and then we have to add the position sticky. So position sticky. And then we're going to give 0 values to the top. So top, 0. Then we're going to have a padding of 5 pixels. Okay, let's do that. Then a background color. Okay, let's do a background color here for the yellow. So let's do background color, and let's use the same yellow, by the way. Oh, by the way, we're also going to remove here the width. Okay, let's hit save and let's hit refresh. Okay, so we are removing the width. Now there is another thing that I want to do here in addition to adding some style to that. I am going to add a couple of spaces here. Okay, so as you can see, we've added a couple of spaces here to our code, and we already apply all the same style that we saw here at W3 Schools with our position sticky value, okay? And now if you take a look, when I scroll all the way down here, you see what happens with the position sticky? I'm still scrolling down, but it stays stuck at top of our website. Why? Because in our style, we set top 0 for the position sticky, and well, we added some other properties, but with adding top 0 means that if we scroll, this is always going to be at top, okay? And if you scroll down more and more, it'll always stay sticked, okay? So the only two divisions you can see is with position fixed, which it'll stay there regardless the scroll, and the position sticky that you have to go ahead and actually play around with that. So I hope that all these values have so far made sense to you. If they make sense, make sure that you practice, make sure that you play around with them, because this is something that is definitely going to help you out when putting stuff in the right position, elements in the right position when you're building a website for somebody else. Now, another thing that I want to talk here is overlapping elements. Overlapping elements, this happens when you go ahead and you use the Z index. Because as you can see, sometimes one element goes on top of the other and then on top of the other, and you say, oh man, I cannot control which property is doing that, or I mean which element is going on top and which one at the bottom. Well, you can go ahead and you can play around with that by using the Z index. This is going to help you a lot. So let's go ahead and hit here where it says try it yourself. If you want an image to be a background for a heading, as an example here, you can certainly do that. Now let's go ahead and let's add here some H1. Okay, and I am guessing we're gonna have to delete all the entire style we've played around so far with, the positions, the divisions, everything. I'm going to clear everything up for you just so you can go ahead and actually see this right now. This is the last thing I'm going to show you on this tutorial to not make it any longer than it already is. So okay, first thing we're going to add is an H1. Okay, so let's add an H1 and let's say this is the paragraph. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is add an image. Okay, so let's add an image. Let's add an image, and by the way, the image is going to be it's going to be on images, and let's add the image with the puppy. Okay, that's the image we're going to add here. Okay, I'm going to add a width and height to the image. We're going to do that later. Okay, and then obviously if you want to add a paragraph, you can do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add a paragraph, an H1, and then the image so you can see it. So let's see if this is working. Let's go back to our code and let's hit refresh. And boom, there you go. Here we have the pet, and here we have the paragraph. So let's go ahead and give this some style. We're going to call the image here. And we're going to take a look and see how this was positioned. Whoops, let's close this one. In the example. So the image has a position of absolute. Pay close attention to that because we just spoke about this. Okay, so the image is going to have a position of absolute. Okay, and we're going to give it also a height of 100 pixels. And let's also give it a width of 100 pixels as well. Not sure. A height. Yeah, let's do that. 100 pixels and 100 pixels. Okay, let's hit save. We're going to hit refresh now. And the image is below the paragraph, as you can see. Now, the next thing we want to do is add a left and a top of 0 pixels. Okay, so let's say left 0, and then let's do the same for the top. We're going to say 0. Okay, and then last but not least, we're going to add this property, the z index. And we're going to say it's going to be -1. Okay, -1 because we want to make sure that the position it's right before the H1. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. Let's just hit save here. And let's hit cancel there, and let's hit refresh. Okay, so now the image right now, it's in front of the paragraph, right? As you can see, we said into our paragraph, this is a paragraph, and now this is not there because the image is on top. So we fixed that by using the property called z index, and we're going to set this up to -1. Okay, now I'm going to hit save. Let's hit refresh, and boom, now we can see this is a paragraph, right? And the little dog image is on the background. So that's how you can use the z index to style your different divisions. Make sure that you also use the position property and its value so that you can go ahead and organize and design a beautiful website. So I hope that this episode has been super useful for you. If it was useful and you liked it, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Also remember, if you're new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye everyone, and see you again in the next episode.